Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Jonathan Paula. Once again, life and other projects got in the way, and so my planned slate of reviews for the last 2 weeks have been smushed together. Apologies if you were hoping to hear my thoughts on Green Room or Spider-Man 3. We'll have to save those for another time. Because tonight we're reviewing these 3 films, and we begin with The Jungle Book. A bolder and visually stunning retelling. This $175 million fantasy adventure film from accomplished director Jon Favreau was released nationwide on April 15, 2016, and grossed $730 million in its first 3 weeks. If my count is correct, this is the 7th film adaptation of Rudyard Kipling's collection of India-inspired stories from the late 1800s. But perhaps more importantly, it's also Disney's 4th attempt at the story, with this live-action CGI blend being a direct remake of their animated classic from 1967, which we reviewed here on the show a couple years ago. The familiar 106-minute film shares the story of a man-cub named Mowgli, who goes on a journey of self-discovery after a threat from the tiger Shere Khan forces him out of the jungle. The young Neil Sethi makes his feature film debut as this small Indian boy, and he does a commendable job considering his co-stars are all computer-generated. They are, however, voiced by some excellent talent. Bill Murray, Ben Kingsley, Idris Elba, Lupita Nyong'o, Scarlett Johansson, Christopher Walken, and the late Gary Shandling in his final role. All of them slide into their animal personas with ease, well, except for Christopher Walken, who portrays a giant monkey that sounds exactly like Christopher Walken. My experience of this film was undoubtedly improved since I saw it in crystal clear IMAX Laser 3D, but holy cow, it looks absolutely phenomenal. The motion capture, computer-created imagery seamlessly brings these majestic animals to life in a strikingly believable way. Their movements, speech, and appearance are all flawless. Reportedly, the Baloo character was so large and furry he took almost 5 full hours of rendering time per frame. A pioneering achievement by the magicians at Moving Picture Company and Weta Digital, The Jungle Book features the best visual effects since Avatar and is worth seeing on the big screen for that reason alone. Perhaps the biggest testament to this is the last line at the end of the credits, which reads, "Filmed in downtown Los Angeles." Wow. One highlight is during Mowgli's initial trek through the jungle as he happens across a herd of elephants. The sight of these giant creatures slowly emerging from a blanket of fog is breathtaking and rendered with incredible realism. Another sequence where our man-cub protagonist is caught up in a charging stampede of buffalo is intense and frightening. It captures the same wonder of a similar sequence in Dances with Wolves. Although this isn't a true musical, there are still a few songs incorporated in the PG-rated story, including the unforgettable Bare Necessities number, which Murray clearly has a lot of fun with, explaining, "That's a song about the good life."
Relax, kid. No need to get worked up, okay?
Where am I?
This is a cave. It's my cave. You don't remember what happened, do you?
No.
I saved your life. Yeah, I snatched you from the jaws of death, the coils of death, if you will. And lucky for you, your new favorite hero, old Baloo here, just happened to be passing by. No big deal.
Keeping with its playful nature, the movie concludes with some very inventive pop-up book style credits, which re-visualize scenes from the movie in miniature form. A slightly more serious iteration of what came before, but no less family-friendly, Favreau has done a remarkable job bringing to life such a vibrant and authentic world, filled with fun and memorable characters. While it's impossible to call this picture original, it's a must-see for all Disney fans. The Jungle Book's flawless visuals beautifully recreate a classic story. And here's what you thought about it. We were in agreement for The Jungle Book, with everyone praising its visuals and scoring this an awesome. Next up, Keanu. Carefree fun with some social commentary. Released on April 29, 2016, this $15 million action comedy marks the first motion picture from Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele, following the conclusion of their Comedy Central sketch show, Key and Peele. The duo brought along the show's director as well, Peter Atencio. To retrieve a stolen kitty, Key and Peele pose as dangerous drug-dealing murderers to infiltrate a street gang. Predictably, their years of real-life friendship and chemistry permeates throughout the script. These characters have a very lived-in feel to them.
This is a crazy drug dealer named Cheddar.
So what's so scary about Cheddar?
Cheddar is a psychopath name. You only name yourself something adorable if you can back it up.
I don't think that's a thing.
That's a thing. If you meet a guy named Fluffy Pink Bunny Head, he will stab you in the eye.
I'm sure that this Cheddar guy is going to be reasonable about money, and if need be, we will just buy Keanu back.
No, don't. Not like that. Come on.
What, this?
Yeah, pop the collar.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. That's what the kids are doing.
Not really.
Method Man, Tiffany Haddish, Jason Mitchell, and Darren Britt Gibson portray the Blips gang with an effective amount of danger and curiosity. Meanwhile, Will Forte, Rob Hubel, and Luis Guzman round out the supporting cast with quirky performances. There's also 2 absolutely fantastic celebrity cameos that need to go unspoiled. But let's not forget the titular cat. Ostensibly named after the enigmatic movie star, the adorable little furball is an obvious highlight and helps give the plot an actual purpose. Coming from suburbanized lifestyles that could best be described as white, Key and Peele must step outside their comfort zone and act as black as possible. Chastising Key's bland lifestyle, Peele jokes, "You sound like Richard Pryor doing an impression of a white guy." This concept is a twist on the familiar and sets up some great moments, like a hilarious scene where Key attempts to convince his new gang members that 80s music icon George Michael is actually a fatherless black man. Moments later, he passes off his appendix scar as the outcome of a violent street fight. Keanu really makes full use of its R rating and never shies away from extremely vulgar language, bloody gunfights, or frequent drug use. Although it's just an hour and 40 minutes in length, the plot feels particularly slow and repetitive in the middle portion. Once the central premise is established, there aren't any major developments until the picture's climax. These pacing and story issues are my biggest problems with Keanu, which feels a bit too familiar at times. While Key and Peele are able to turn some racial stereotypes on their head by tackling them from the perspective of suburbanized African Americans, the jokes themselves are still the same ones we've all seen before. Despite its lack of surprises, this is still a very funny movie all Key and Peele fans ought to check out, especially for the novelty of seeing them unbound by television censorship. Keanu is a hilarious, if predictable romp about racial issues, and a good movie. Last up tonight, my detailed thoughts on Captain America: Civil War. For better or worse, this is more of the same. After a social media blitzkrieg that encouraged audiences to pick a side in the titular bout, this superhero action film from Anthony and Joe Russo premiered nationwide in early May of 2016. The 13th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this picture also marks the beginning of their Phase 3. The PG-rated adventure earned back its $250 million budget inside of a week, and most predictions have it grossing around $1.5 billion by the end of its theatrical run. Given its mammoth cast, I'd hardly classify this as a so-called solo film, but it is still Captain America's story, as political interference causes a rift between his allegiance to the Avengers and his fugitive friend, the Winter Soldier. Lamenting to an ally on their ability to effectively protect the world, the title character remarks, "We try to save as many people as possible. Sometimes that doesn't mean everyone." The central discourse between our heroes is handled quite realistically, as they spar over the issues of governmental oversight versus independent operation. Both arguments have their own merit, and commendably the movie doesn't spoon-feed the audience any answers. Whether you're Team Cap or Team Iron Man, by the picture's end you may find yourself siding with the opposition. I will say though, the film's title is quite a stretch. The real conflict here amounts to little more than a disagreement between friends, not quite what I'd call a war. At 147 minutes, the third Captain America film is the longest picture in the MCU, and it needs to be just to contain its absolutely huge ensemble cast, which includes Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Don Cheadle, Jeremy Renner, Chadwick Boseman, Paul Bettany, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Rudd, and Daniel Bruhl. In smaller roles, we also have Emily Van Camp, Tom Holland, Frank Grillo, William Hurt, Marissa Tomei, John Slattery, Alfre Woodard, Martin Freeman, and of course the requisite Stan Lee cameo. Since these are characters we've grown to love over the past 12 installments, their reluctant conflict feels earned and authentic. It also becomes a bit uncomfortable, like watching a fight between your parents. Remarkably, even the new characters feel fleshed out and developed. This is truly an effortless juggling act by the Russo brothers, and with so many proverbial balls in the air, you barely notice that Hulk and Thor have sat this one out. The original Captain America film is actually my least favorite in the franchise, but the more I think about it, Captain America is actually my favorite character. There's a stubborn idealism about him that makes him such a fascinating protagonist, a hero compelled to do the right thing no matter the cost. And as you'd expect, Evans is fantastic, sparring off against RDJ and all the rest, while newcomer Holland feels right at home swapping banter with Rudd. Speaking of Holland though, let's talk about his portrayal of Spider-Man, a character who has now been rebooted 3 times in the last 8 years. I love Tobey Maguire's trilogy and generally enjoyed Andrew Garfield, but this Tom Holland kid just feels right. He's only given a limited amount of screen time to work with, but his cheerful demeanor and playful innocence are captured perfectly. I for one am excited Sony and Marvel were able to negotiate a deal that has brought him into the shared cinematic universe. His inclusion in Civil War does seem like a last-minute addition though. The dependable visuals from ILM once again conquer the uncanny valley with an early flashback scene showing off a 20-year-old Robert Downey Jr. that might as well have been shot in the early 90s. but their VFX work uncharacteristically falters when Iron Man shares a conversation with Spidey in one of those aforementioned 11th hour editions. Second unit pickups and chroma key backdrops are one thing, but this quick scene looks like a Snapchat face swap gone bad. Back to the supporting cast. Although I know nothing about the Black Panther, Boseman's brief appearance really sold me on the character, as well as his upcoming solo film. He's a ferocious and scary hero with impressive abilities, and a sharp suit to match. Literally. Despite a brief introduction in The Winter Soldier, Van Camp's appearance as Cap's love interest just seems forced. She's perfectly sweet and delightful, but with so much going on, there's not nearly enough time to develop their relationship. Hurt returns to the franchise after an 8-year absence, and although his stern government exposition isn't anything special, it does help retroactively tie his original film, The Incredible Hulk, back into canon a bit more. The action sequences in Captain America 3 are of the highest caliber, and even though some of the edits feel particularly quick, an early chase scene through a Lagos marketplace is quite exciting. Honestly, I could watch Johansson hurdle obstacles and take down bad guys all day. The feature is also loaded with plenty of applause-inducing moments, like when Stan rips off a railing to rappel down a stairwell during a huge fight, or moments later when he flips around a speeding motorcycle with his mechanical arm to steal it. On the funnier side of things, I especially enjoyed Rudd referring to Hawkeye as Arrow Man, or a scene where Mackie and Stan exchange a knowing smile of approval to a love-struck Evans. This franchise continues to show off inventive sci-fi tech too, like Mackie's flying drone sidekicks or Downey's Iron Man watch.
We're in position.
By now you know what to expect from Marvel. Exciting action, interesting characters, and fun dialogue. By that same token, however, the music is forgettable, the villain uninspired, and the runtime a tad bloated. Obviously, Marvel fans will love this picture, which delivers plenty of smiles and fascinating moments. But more casual viewers will get a sense of been there, done that. On the plus side, since it's more reliant on set pieces rather than its story, it should hold up well under multiple viewings too. Captain America Civil War is a crowd-pleasing spectacle that doesn't take any risks. I thought it was great. Hardly Marvel's best, but it's certainly up there. Unfortunately, that does it for tonight's episode, but stay tuned for the first in a series of special random review episodes next week. I'm way behind my usual pace for this time of the year, so in an effort to catch up, I'll be reviewing whatever I want. In the meantime, you can click this information icon to watch some related content. Once again, my name is Jonathan Paula, thanks for watching, and have a good movie night.